talk to any of the traditional union members that are men, we've lost them a long time ago. I've witnessed that migration away from the Democratic Party starting back in 2016. We absolutely have a problem in that part of the demographic. So we really have to find a way to bring them back and make better arguments without blaming them or describing they are the problem.
You know what SAM stands for? It's a new phrase. It stands for Speaking with American Men, SAM. This is the new movement by the Democratic Party. They lost the men vote a lot last time, so they had a meeting up at the Ritz-Carlton at Half Moon Bay, south of San Francisco.
The Democratic Party has become so alienating to many men that it is steadily losing their support at the ballot box. That reality has triggered concern even among some of the party's most loyal voices, none more outspoken than Bill Maher. Across multiple episodes of Real Time, Maher has repeatedly warned that ignoring male voters could have serious political consequences. His message has been consistent: lose men, and the electoral fallout could be devastating. Now, many believe that warning is becoming reality. The shift is impossible to ignore, and Maher isn't holding back. If you enjoy political analysis like this, be sure to subscribe, and let's dive in.
Senator Fetterman, men are nearly twice as likely as women to be living with their parents in the current financial climate. How do we help young men? Wow, twice as likely.
Whoa. Oh, right now I'm not really running for anything right now, but I'm just saying. But not, what exactly?
Men are. We hear this all the time, that young men are in crisis, that women are doing better in college.
Well,
they're doing better.
Without a doubt, though, there's part of the Democratic Party became more and more anti-men, or describing that they were part of the problem, or they have toxic traits.
Critics argue that the Democratic Party and many of its liberal allies have spent years pushing men away. Many men say they feel unfairly labeled as toxic, mocked, and treated more as problems than as valued members of society. According to these critics, that mindset didn't remain confined to politics. It spread into Hollywood, television, and corporate advertising. Film after film and commercial after commercial portrayed fathers and husbands as clueless, incompetent, or constantly needing correction from stronger, wiser family members. In many forms of entertainment, children were shown respecting their mothers while dismissing or ridiculing their fathers. Repeated across countless movies, television shows, and advertisements, critics argue this narrative gradually normalized disrespect toward men. They also argue that Democratic leaders rarely challenged these cultural trends, and in some cases, appeared to embrace them.
Why there's been such a big migration away from the Democratic Party from young men, and that's really why why we lost in 2024. Now, if you identify anyone as the problem or blame them for some things, then you're going to lose. We forgot that we are in the business of addition, not subtraction.
Some observers believe Senator John Fetterman has identified one of the Democratic Party's biggest challenges. One of the most overlooked reasons for recent Democratic losses, they argue, was the party's failure to connect with male voters. Over time, many young men felt the party had little interest in understanding their concerns. They increasingly viewed it as a political movement where their experiences were ignored rather than acknowledged. Feeling disconnected, many turned toward the online manosphere, a growing network of podcasts, YouTube channels, and online communities focused on men's issues and identity. Conservative voices built strong influence within those spaces, and Donald Trump became a symbol of confidence, strength, and unapologetic masculinity. For many of these young voters, support didn't gradually shift. It accelerated rapidly.
So there was a testosterone shift in 2024. I don't think that's a long-term trend. I think it was a very short-term generational shift that we're experiencing within the Democratic Party. Overall, look, I've been a part-time college professor for 33 years. There's something going on with young men in our country. They're reticent. Many of them are holding back, and we need to address that. But at the same time, holding back because sometimes I think they don't know their place anymore, and that's something that men need to decide and discuss.
Supporters of this view argue that the real issue isn't misogyny, but overcorrection. They acknowledge that women face generations of discrimination and inequality, and that those struggles deserve recognition. However, they argue that dismissing every male concern as insecurity or backlash ignores the hardships men have also experienced throughout history. Previous generations of men fought wars, worked dangerous jobs, and lived under expectations that discouraged emotional vulnerability. Today's young men, critics argue, have inherited a culture where many feel they are viewed as guilty by default, inherently toxic, and undeserving of empathy. Whether that perception is accurate or not, they believe it has created political consequences. According to this perspective, repeatedly criticizing men while expecting their continued political loyalty was never a sustainable strategy.
Woman. For years, decades, centuries, women had to be overconfident just to appear qualified. So I don't want men to think that the reason why young men are suffering is because some woman. No, young men are dealing with what young women had to deal with centuries ago. You'll find your place at the table. Come sit with me sometime. I'll get you some help.
Yeah. Well, what I'm saying is, all of
Trust me, Bill. Bill, let me tell you something. You grew up in a Brazil household. My mom used to say, Cheryl, Sheila, Donna, Tater, Chet, Lisa, Dimitri, Kevin, Zoe, get your asses up.
Critics say a damaging mindset gradually developed within parts of the Democratic coalition. The belief that men collectively bear responsibility for historical injustices against women. They argue this thinking influenced party messaging and priorities for years. Rather than simply advocating for women's rights, they believe the party often did so in ways that unintentionally portrayed men as acceptable political casualties. Campaign after campaign, they say, many male voters felt they were being spoken about instead of spoken to. They noticed the dismissive tone. They noticed what they perceived as growing contempt. And eventually, many decided to vote elsewhere.
Lost the vote. You talk to any of the traditional union members that are men, we've lost them a long time ago. I've witnessed that migration away from the Democratic Party starting back in 2016. We absolutely have a problem in that part of the demographic. So we really have to find a way to bring them back and make better arguments without blaming them or describing them.
According to critics, this remains the central issue the Democratic Party has yet to fully confront. They argue that years of messaging focused heavily on blaming or criticizing men pushed many away from the party. Within that framework, women often became the central focus, while male struggles received little recognition. Many young men, still developing their political identities, concluded that the party simply wasn't interested in representing them. At the same time, Republicans actively welcomed those voters with messaging that celebrated masculinity instead of treating it as something problematic. From this perspective, Republicans didn't take these voters away. The Democratic Party simply lost them.
I want to get to something very important. How many know what SAM stands for? It's a new phrase. It stands for Speaking with American Men, SAM. This is the new movement by the Democratic Party. They lost the men vote a lot last time, so they had a meeting up at the Ritz-Carlton at Half Moon Bay, south of San Francisco. I'm not making this up, where they served mini lobster rolls and had heirloom tomato carpaccio and seared sea bass in their conclave to decide how to win back the American man. Now, look.
It's because we used to have conferences at Harvard to figure out what the working class needs, and so now we're moving west.
You got to own who you are. I get it. These are the mini lobster roll people. But they had this symposium, and we got a hold of what was this is Speaking with American Men. This is a real thing that they're doing.
Some observers believe Democrats are finally recognizing the problem. Election results have forced difficult conversations, and many party leaders now openly acknowledge significant losses among male voters. The challenge, however, isn't recognizing the issue. It's rebuilding trust. Winning men back requires far more than campaign slogans or carefully crafted messaging. Voters who spent years feeling dismissed are unlikely to return because of a few speeches or media appearances. Critics argue the party faces a fundamental choice: find a way to support women's rights while also demonstrating genuine respect for men's concerns, or risk making this political realignment permanent. Time may already be running short.
Seminars that they had to try to win back the typical American male, like how to keep your liberal base while putting guns on your Christmas card. That was one that I wanted to. Best protein powder for a clean bulk and other dude conversation starters. Bud Light etiquette, when to drink it, when to shoot it. Fishing, the bizarre hobby working class men enjoy instead of pickleball.
Whether recent Democratic outreach efforts represent genuine change or simply improved public relations remains open to debate. Critics argue that symbolic gestures, appearing at gyms, discussing traditionally masculine hobbies, or posing at shooting ranges, address optics rather than underlying concerns. They believe men didn't leave because candidates lacked masculine imagery. They left because many felt unheard, disrespected, and politically ignored. According to this view, until Democrats address those deeper concerns with meaningful changes instead of photo opportunities, rebuilding trust will remain extremely difficult. You can't repair a damaged foundation simply by repainting the walls.
The only scene that you're obsessed with in Titanic, hint, it has tits. Bruce Lee versus Bigfoot, mythical fight scenarios to man up your Joe Rogan appearance. Intersectionality and the importance of shutting the fuck up about it.
If current political trends continue, critics believe Democrats may struggle to regain significant support among male voters before the next major elections. The upcoming midterms will provide an important test. Election results will reveal whether recent outreach efforts have changed public opinion, or whether dissatisfaction remains. Those who hold this view argue that lasting improvement requires more than strategy. It requires a genuine cultural shift. They believe the party must stop framing masculinity primarily as a problem to solve, and instead recognize men as citizens deserving the same respect, dignity, and representation as every other voting group. Until then, they argue, rebuilding trust will remain an extremely...
Undouching your face, man beards from Ted Cruz to J.D. Vance.
The Democratic Party's relationship with many male voters didn't collapse overnight. Critics argue it weakened gradually through years of messaging that they believe blamed, criticized, or overlooked men. Bill Maher warned about the trend. John Fetterman has acknowledged concerns about male voters. And recent election results have intensified the debate. Whether Democrats ultimately change course remains to be seen. The upcoming elections will provide the clearest answer. If the party hopes to rebuild its relationship with men, critics argue it must move beyond symbolic outreach and demonstrate a genuine commitment to representing all voters equally. If you enjoyed this analysis, don't forget to like the video, share it with others, and subscribe for more political commentary. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.